I'll begin with a roll call and seating of alternates. I see, let's see now, who's present? Jed Larson.
Yep, here.
Jim Hallisey.
Here.
And I don't see Commissioner Smith on the call. I do see alternate William Monroe on the call. So I'm going to seat alternate William Monroe in place of Commissioner Smith. Okay, again, the agenda for this hearing is consideration of IWWC application 20-27, Ruby and Nahan Puerto at 129 Hebron Road. The application to erect a concrete stone wall and fence, in-ground pool, utility shed, and two-car garage with accessory apartment within the upland review area. We should note, of course, that the application that was considered at our previous hearing has been subsequently substantially modified. However, in order to effect the completion of the hearing, I will ask first if there are any comments by any of the commissioners. Again, any comments or questions? Okay.
Yes, my name's Jim Hallisey, and I have questions for the chair. I'm just looking for a clarification as to what the application includes insofar as the septic system, what approvals are in place.
Good. Maybe Agent Wagner could speak to that. All I know is what's posted on the website.
Yeah, this Agent Wagner. The septic system is on this application, so it needs to be considered as part of this application. And it's on the plan, the new site plan that was submitted.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Okay, seeing no further comments or questions about the application in regard to the hearing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing so that we can proceed to our regular meeting.
Jim Hallisey, move to adjourn the public hearing.
All right, Mr. Hallisey has moved. I need a second. Don't be shy.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Larson.
Was that the teacher in school
And
one
I
time?
will ask for a vote on the motion. I have to do it, of course, by roll call. Commissioner Hallisey.
Right, now you can.
Chairman Elliott, could we have, I have a question before we proceed to the vote.
Wait a minute, you want to back up and talk about the application, is this for the hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
My
I
only
will
question,
indicate that.
My
And
only
that is-
question is, were we going to solicit input from the public during
I
this
did.
public hearing?
I
Oh, I
did.
just heard you ask the commissioners. I'm sorry.
No, I then subsequently asked if there was any further public input and didn't see any hands raised or comment to that effect. So as I say, let's proceed now. We have a motion on the floor seconded to adjourn the hearing. Again, by roll call, Mr. Halsey has already voted to Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and I, Vice Chairman Elliott, vote aye as well. So the motion carries 4-0. We will now move to the regular meeting, which commences immediately following the public hearing at 7:06. The roll call and seating of alternates will be as for the hearing. And the next item on the agenda is the additions and changes in order to the agenda. I have been advised of at least a couple of additions, and I would first propose that we add to Section 8, permit applications, IWWC 20-27, the application that we just considered in the hearing. We have to have it on the agenda for the meeting in order to consider whether or not it should be approved, okay? So that's the, I will, as chair, make that motion to add that item to the agenda. And I'll ask for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. That was from Commissioner Larson to add IWWC application 2027 to the agenda, as there would be item number 8A. And of course, subsequent applications would be redesignated accordingly. And I'll now call for a vote on the application, on the motion, again by roll call. Commissioner Halsey.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Elliott also votes aye. So the motion to add to the agenda carries. In addition, we have received, subsequent to the printing of the agenda, but in time for inclusion on tonight's agenda, a new item, which I'm trying to dig up here. Okay, an application 2036 for construction at 26 Old Farms Road. That would be item number 7B on the agenda. Could I have a motion to add that, please?
Larson makes a motion to add that to the agenda.
Halsey, second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to add IWWC 2036 to the agenda. I'll call for a vote again by roll call. Commissioner Halsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and Vice Chairman Elliott also votes aye, so the motion carries 4-0. And finally, we received a request to consider modification of a permit previously issued for construction at 344 Lake Road. I'm going to propose that that be added to the agenda as item number 6B, because it seems to be essentially a jurisdictional request regarding, again, the conditions for modification of a permit that has already been issued. This just came to my attention this afternoon from Agent Wagner.
About 10 minutes.
Okay. So again, I'll need to ask for a motion to add that agenda item.
Halsey, move to add request for modification at 354 Lake Road to the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. That was, Commissioner Monroe, I believe. Okay, I'll ask for a vote again by roll call. Commissioner Halsey,
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe, and I, Vice Chair Elliott, also vote aye, so the motion carries 4-0-0. Are there any other requests for additions or changes in order to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, I will move to agenda item number 4, approvals of minutes. First, the minutes for the regular meeting of November 2nd, 2020. Again, I'll ask for a motion to approve so that we can discuss.
Larson makes a motion to approve the minutes from November 2nd, 2020.
Second.
Okay, any commissioners have any comments or questions about those minutes? I have just a couple of really minor items. On page 5, under the consideration of the request for jurisdiction ruling at the Andover Sportsman's Club for timber harvest, there's a sentence that reads, harvest of dying emerald ash borer, which should be harvest of ash trees dying of emerald ash borer. Don't we wish that the emerald ash borer were in fact dying? Okay, and in that same paragraph, there's a sentence, the project is cut to length, which doesn't make sense to me. Maybe forestry's talk. And if anybody has any suggestions on that one, I'd be happy to entertain them. Okay, well, I guess we'll just have to leave it as it stands. So any other revisions to the minutes for that meeting? Okay, I'll ask for a vote on the motion to approve the minutes as, with revisions as noted. Commissioner Halsey? Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe? And I, Vice Chair Elliott, also vote aye, so the motion to approve the minutes carries 4-0-0. Then we have the minutes of the November 14th, 2020 special meeting. And again, I'll call for a motion to approve.
Larson makes a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from Saturday, November 14th, 2020.
Second, Halsey.
Okay. Any comments? Need for revision? Okay, I'll ask for a vote then to approve the minutes as received. Once again, Commissioner Halsey,
In favor.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and I, Vice Chair Elliott, also vote aye. So the motion carries 4-0-0. The minutes are approved. Item number 5, public comment. This is the time for public to comment on the items that are on the agenda for tonight's meeting. You should probably try to raise your hand or text or comment to our board clerk, Mindy, because I may not see if somebody does want to make a comment. I take it there are no public comments. We will then proceed to item number 6A of new business, a jurisdictional review for IWWC 20-34JR. Joseph Thoreau, who's present at the meeting, on behalf of Ronald and Joan Cherney. I see Ronald Cherney is also here, for the property owners at 110 Cone Road, who wish to harvest timber on a site property they own, which involves activities in a watercourse and associated upland review agents or upland review area. Remember, this is a jurisdictional matter right at the moment. We don't have an application. Essentially, the question is whether this activity requires a permit. I'm going to ask Agent Wagner to speak to this issue because I believe he has some discussion and familiarity with the inquiry.
Yeah, I don't have too much. I didn't visit the site. I talked to Joe Thoreau. He went out and took some pictures of the Wetlands Crossing sites and the picture of the material that they're using to make the temporary bridges. Put them together, and they're posted on the town website. Hopefully everybody got a chance to view them. Yeah, nothing's been started yet. As far as I know, last time I talked, they were unloading stuff there, but I think Mr. Thoreau would be able to provide a better description.
Okay.
So this is Joseph Thoreau.
Okay.
Yes, Christopher Levesque is the logger that's going to be doing the work there. He has deposited both of his pieces of equipment on the property, but that has not really gotten going yet. To facilitate removal of the timber, we have two wetland crossings in the town of Andover. If you look at the cutting plan, the first one is labeled WC1, and the second one is labeled SC3. WC1 or Wetland Crossing 1 is a very, very narrow.
Here.
Sure.
Mindy, can you bring those up as a share?
Is it on the submitting and pending approval is on here. This map?
Mr. Thoreau, is that the map that you were referring to?
I'm not virtual. I'm just here on the phone, so I
Oh,
can't
okay.
see what's going on.
It does appear, it's a map that shows the property at Cone Road. Yeah, I think we can see that.
Yep.
Okay, so you said
So
there would be,
if you look right at the town line, there's Wetland Crossing number 1. That's going to be used to access the western portion of the property. Several of those portable bridges that you see the photos of will be laid out there. At the completion of the operation, the logger picks them back up and seeds and mulches the crossing sites. Crossing SC3 is a narrow intermittent stream crossing. It's a very rocky site. Same thing. He's going to be using the same portable bridges. Very, very small amount of timber is actually coming out of that small upland island, if you will. And that'll probably be towards the end of the job. And the same thing at the end of the operation, he'll remove those bridges and backblade or grade the skid trails on either side, seed and mulch the crossing sites. As far as the timber harvest is concerned, this is a management cut. We're just simply we're taking out about maybe a quarter to a third of the volume of the timber. Again, just to really remove overmature, poorly formed disease and oaks that were in decline. I'd say the time frame of the operation will probably run more or less 3 weeks to a month, provided he has good ground conditions. We don't get too much rain. If during, the operation, if ground conditions tend to get muddy, then he's a good operator. He shuts down, waits till the ground conditions to improve. That's basically it, but I can entertain any questions you may have.
okay, the big question here is there don't seem to be any existing crossings. These would be new crossings, correct?
Years ago, this timber was cut, and there are most of actually where you see those skid trails or main haul roads is labeled. There were old trails there, yes. Yep. So I'm actually using existing crossing sites.
Crossing sites, okay.
Yep.
Okay, any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Larson. I had a question, from the pictures. I did not understand why we would be seeding and mulching following the crossing when it doesn't look like there's any vegetation in the area at this point.
Well, what happens is when the machine goes over those bridges, there is minimal disturbance there, and of course the skid trails on either side of that crossing site are bare mineral soil. So it's always important to put in water bars and seed and mulch on either side of the crossing site, because what that does is it stabilizes the soils. So in the spring, when everything greens up, it's definitely a better way to do it. You don't just not seed and mulch. The hay simply putting the hay down also helps to stop it when it rains. That you don't get as much disturbance. This is a common practice on stream crossings and wetland crossing sites.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, well, I guess we have sufficient understanding present. Again, the question here is whether the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission has jurisdiction, and hence that whether a permit will be required. And for the purpose of proceeding with the discussion, I would like a motion to the effect that a permit is required for this activity.
Larson makes a motion that a permit is required for the logging activity.
For the Wetlands Crossing activity, if you would.
For the Wetlands Crossing to support the logging activity.
Thank you.
Halsey will second that.
Okay. Comments? Discussion of the motion.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak or no?
This
This is Joseph Thoreau.
Yeah, this is a discussion for the commission with respect to the requirement for a permit, not the activity itself per se. So we've got recent precedent.
Are you going to allow me to speak or no?
Well, okay, is your comment germane to the question of whether or not you need a permit?
It is actually. It is. It's germane to the fact of whether this is a permitted use as of right or whether it's in fact a regulated activity.
Okay, then I'll entertain your comment.
I'm a wetlands agent for 6 different towns in eastern Connecticut, and I have yet to have any commission rule that the temporary stream crossings used for forestry operations are regulated activities. If you look at Section 4 of your regulations, if you look under the definition of agriculture and forestry and silviculture, they are specifically permitted uses as of right, by definition.
Right, that's correct. We have heard that assertion previously, and I will call the attention of ask the commissioners to recall the legal advice we obtained from our attorney, Mark Brantz, that case law suggests that deposition of material in the wetland or watercourse is not permitted as of right, even though it is in support of an activity that may be permitted as of right. So,
Mr. Chairman, how do you consider the placement of a portable bridge that's being removed deposition? I feel deposition of material means pipes, culvert pipes, fill materials, filter fabric, things that are meant to stay in place permanently. These are just some simply structures like log corduroy. They're placed to simply protect the wetlands, and they're taken out afterwards.
I understand that. And again, I'm only relaying the advice of our attorney to the effect that in a previous discussion, or again, a previous jurisdictional ruling, we were exactly that question. Again, it was a consideration of a proposal to use temporary crossings, such as the ones that are proposed for this activity. And again, we were advised that according to case law, that would be considered a deposition. And frankly, I don't want to get involved in the adjudication of that question. I'm simply relaying that to our commission as a point of departure for this discussion.
This is Commissioner Halsey. I recall that evening in Mark's Attorney Brance's recommendation, he was calling basically he included temporary fill. Not saying, I mean, I'm sure, tracts of land are logged all the time as a use of right without permits. I agree with Chairman Elliott in that that was certainly Attorney Brance's call. That was his recommendation.
I have to say he's wrong. Complete idiot.
Okay. Commissioner Larson, do you have comments or recollection on that advice?
I recall the advice just as you had stated it, Chairman Elliott, and when we were, discussing the Andover Sportsman Club, that was the difference between that and the previous application where we went the other way. So I think your recollection is exactly what we were provided by our legal counsel.
Yeah, the Andover Sportsman Club issue, there were already crossings in place. So there was no new activity to regulate. In this case, we seem to have, and that's why I asked about whether these crossings were existing crossings or whether they, as they appear from the photographs, they appear to be de novo crossings that would again involve even temporary deposition of material in the wetland for the purpose of facilitating the crossing. And I appreciate that this is good practice as forestry, and that there are reasonable differences of opinion and interpretation on this activity. But I think that given the fact that we had been advised by counsel and had previously ruled that that this specific sort of activity should require a permit, I think that we're pretty much obliged to continue to request permit in this situation.
Had one other comment, if I may.
Ms. Larson, yeah, Commissioner Larson?
I'd like to go on record saying I think our attorney is not an idiot.
Would you repeat that for me? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I disagree with the comment that our attorney must be an idiot.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from commissioners?
You hear me?
May I speak? I'm Ron Cherney, the landowner.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Go ahead.
Well, thank
I
you.
suppose it should be.
Yeah, I got two things. One is that the land was logged not too long ago in 1988 after a Hurricane Gloria. And Joe Nichols from the Talent Volag there, she was the state forester in charge of that operation there. And like Joe Thoreau had said, I think that we're using some of the same existing crossings there. So I don't see how this is any much different than what is done just a while ago. And also I'd like to have Joe Wagner make a few comments on this whole thing if we could, if it has to go through this permit process.
Well, again, that's the question here. The commission has to determine whether or not a permit is required.
Well, Okay, and what I'm saying is, not too long ago in my lifetime, it was logged. Pretty much the same as what's happening at this point in time. I don't know if anything has changed that makes it much different than what was just done. That's basically my comment. I don't know if Joe has been, I believe, looked at the land, if he has any further comments on this.
Can you repeat the question?
If there-
Who's speaking?
This is
That was
Joe. I was just asked the question, or?
No, Joe Wagner. He's
Oh,
the
sorry.
He's the wetlands guy from Andover. So I just was curious on his comments. How is this any different that was just done in recent time? About 30 years ago. I don't believe any permit was required at that point in time.
Yes, Agent Wagner here. I'm not sure, that was well before my time. The comment that I have for the commission is just like, is there more information that is needed for the wetlands crossing to make the decision? Like I'm just like looking at the practicality of applying for a permit. Like if it's going to be just the same information as this notification, but in permit form, it just seems like it would be unnecessary, because it's not, you're not asking for anything new. Whereas if you needed more information to make a decision about the wetlands crossing, that might be different.
Okay, I'll respond to that. Again, Vice Chair Elliott. The fact is that a permit requires an application. Right now, we're being asked for a jurisdictional ruling, which is a different matter. If we were to decide that we don't require, that we don't have jurisdiction, then that would obviate the need for a permit. But if we do decide that we have jurisdiction and a permit is required, yes, the permit will incorporate much of the same information, and we will be making a decision on a permit on the basis of the same information. But in fact, much of the information that is being presented in this jurisdictional request isn't about the jurisdiction, it's about the proposal. And again, this is a very narrow ruling that we're making. And the fact that we're asking for a permit simply means apply for a permit. And I can't, again, speaking a little ahead of ourselves, I can't see any reason why we would deny that permit, because it seems to be a perfectly sensible forestry plan. The question is, again, based on precedent and, for this commission, and based on advice of our legal counsel, I believe that we do have jurisdiction, that specific aspect, the wetland crossing aspect, is under our jurisdiction, and that a permit will therefore be required. And again, I don't think that I don't want any further public comment on that question. This is a question for the commissioners to decide, again, based on our understanding of requirements.
Right, this is Halsey, and I can appreciate the applicant's input here, and but I also do remember what Attorney Branson said, and as a commission, I think we should follow his advice. But curious if, as an alternative, this is jurisdictional ruling, whether the commission has determined whether a permit is required. Is there an alternative? I mean, this would, if there was a permit, an application in place, is something the agent could handle on his own. I apologize if I just don't really understand that process very well as you have to sing is new to me. We haven't had an agent authorized.
No, this would be activity in the wetland, so it would have to go through the commission.
All right, so that is not an alternative, you're saying?
Right. If a permit is issued, we could definitely hand it off to Agent Wagner. I mean, if an application is filed, if a permit is filed, permit application is filed, we could definitely hand it off to Agent Wagner for determination.
Well, the agent can only approve activity in the upland review area. So if this was
Yeah, you're
activity
right.
in
You're
a
right
stream
about that.
crossing, and you
Okay.
think it needs a permit, then it would have to go back before the commission.
Yeah,
I see.
point well
Thank you.
taken. Okay, any other commission comments, questions? Okay, I'd like to proceed then to a vote on the motion. The motion again is to the effect that the commission, that the Andover Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission has jurisdiction and that a permit will be required for the wetland crossing and upland and activities in the upland review area. Mindy, is that a fair statement of the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. And without further discussion, we'll go to a vote. Commissioner Halsey?
Can we go over the motion one more time?
Okay, the motion is the effect that the commission has jurisdiction
Jurisdiction, yes.
and a permit will be required.
Still. Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and I, Vice Chair Elliott, vote aye. The motion carries 4-0-0. Again, we'll be happy to entertain an application for a permit for the forestry activities, which could be submitted for our next meeting in January. Okay, moving on. We added agenda item 6B, an inquiry regarding a previously approved activity at 344 Lake Road, construction and clearing. Let's see, this just came in today, and Agent Wagner, could you introduce this? Because I think you've had a lot better handle on the correspondence than I saw the copies and looked through it, but I believe, let's see, is Engineer Hanfield on this call?
I am, yes.
Okay. You're 860-798.
Hopefully I'm on the screen. I'm coming through the computer.
Okay, there you are.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Joe, do you want to introduce it or do you want me to make a run?
If I'd like Agent Wagner to just briefly introduce it and then hand it over to you.
Engineer Hanfield, I'm sure, knows much more. It was a while ago we talked, but yeah, basically, I guess the permit was previously approved by this commission a couple of years ago. And no action was taken with it, and the new owners want to basically do a similar thing. So Engineer Hanfield was wondering if we could modify it or use the existing permit. So that's what I know.
Okay. Mr. Hanfield, could you briefly explain, and I don't know if, let's see now, Do you have, Mindy, can you bring up for screen share the proposal, the site plan? I think it's, it was, I don't know if it's posted on online or whether it was an email or what.
It was an email. I'm not sure if it's going to be there.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
if it's an email, I probably don't have it.
Oh, okay.
You allow us to share screens, or are you pretty?
If you've got a screen to share, you can, Mindy, can you let him?
Yeah, hold on one
Okay.
second. All right, you should be able to now.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is are the minutes from April 17th, 2018. And just wanted to basically show that it was approved unanimously. Presentation. Right here, approve the proposal, sorry, too far. Here we go. Approve the application at 344 Lake Road. Unanimous 4-0. And this is the plan that was presented to you that evening. So what you see in orange is the existing house, the garage, and in between the former family was proposing an addition that connected the two. And in addition to that, they were proposing a large septic system to the east. They were going to basically take out the existing town drainage pipe and realign it in the road. And there was a significant area of clearing here to do all of that work. So this is the limit of clearing, just as a reference of what was approved. What I submitted today was basically the preliminary plan of what the new owner wants to do. And what I did is I overlaid the original limit of clearing and silt fence to give an idea of the original disturbance limit, which is a magenta here. And then I also overlaid the proposed house in orange with the original footprint, which is also a magenta. It's a dashed line again connecting the two. So you see that the new addition is smaller. It doesn't connect the two structures anymore, but it's within the original footprint of what was being proposed. In addition, there's no longer a proposal to put in a septic system or move the town's drainage pipe. And all of the grading associated with it. So basically, we're going to propose to use the same temporary construction road that was proposed originally. We're going to scale back the silt fence and clearing limit line to only cover that temporary access drive, and build a smaller addition within the same footprint. That actually, it results in a substantial reduction in the disturbance of the upland review area from what was approved. But again, it's within that same footprint and is generally the same project or scope of project minus the septic system. So what this proposal allows us to do is use the existing septic system, and that's why the house is stepped back like that. I can field any questions, but we're hopeful that we can get confirmation that this is in line with the original permit approval, and then we can pull the building permit based on that 2018 approval.
Okay, yeah. So the essential question here for the commission is whether or not this requires a permit revision application. And the salient factors are, first of all, a new owner, and secondly, the downsizing, essentially, of the project parameters, both in terms of the structural and the site modification. I believe, Agent Wagner, I believe you were advised that the provision in our regulation, in our conditions for permit regarding non-transferability is probably non-enforceable.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
So let's just drop that one from consideration and raise the question then of well, again, is this activity a revision that would constitute a requirement for reapplication? I'll ask for comments from the commissioners. Mr. Halsey?
Yeah, this is Halsey. I'd like to know what the conditions the original approval were, specifically the duration. I know they typically run between 2 and 5 years. The conditions that I've read said you could not renew an expired permit. I
I
don't know
believe this one was actually a 5-year permit.
This was a 5-year. Okay, then that's not an issue.
As I understand.
Thank you.
Although nobody seems to be able to, Mr. Hanfield, have you been able to find the actual notification on that? It seems to have gone into the ozone here.
I went as far, and just for full disclosure, the previous owners were my in-laws. And I went as far as asking my mother-in-law if she had a copy, and she's pretty diligent about her paperwork and does not. So I'm not aware of anyone that has a copy of the actual letter of approval. All I ever had were the minutes in my conversations with Mr. Valenti, but that's all I have.
Okay. And I believe Agent Wagner also made some effort to, in the town files.
I couldn't find it there.
Okay. So again, absent that, we will take it as read that it was a 5-year permit. That's our understanding.
Vice Chairman Elliott, what was the address that we're talking about here? I think I got confused with the Shea application when we were
No,
talking
it's,
about.
this is at 344. And again, it's an old application. It was approved in 2018. So we don't have anything, there's nothing posted on that. It's all been simply email and phone correspondence to initiate this inquiry. Okay, well, seeing no further comment or questions, I'd like a motion to the effect that, well, again, based on our previous procedures, we should make a motion that a permit modification, an application for permit modification is required. If we don't think so, we can vote no. So could I have that motion?
This is Larson. I'll make a motion that a permit modification is required for 344 Lake Road.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, Halsey seconds. Okay, again, as a point of discussion here, frankly, I don't think that this does require a permit modification. I think that since it's a reduction in the scope of the project and really no other essential changes in the project that would impact wetlands. I think that the owners should be free to go ahead with the plan as revised. Now, further modifications might require application, but what we've seen tonight and what was presented by Engineer Handfield seems to me perfectly acceptable and should not require an additional application. Anybody want to argue that point?
This is Larson, and I guess my concern is that if nobody has a copy of the permit, why we wouldn't expect to start it over so we do have a paperwork document to go back on when we're doing something. I don't know how we can proceed without having a copy of the permit to modify.
I take your point. We do have proof that the application was approved.
Yeah, I think this is Agent Wagner. I think according to the regulations, the minutes count as a permit. I'm trying. Not sure what part of it is, but I remember reading that.
Yeah, I mean, we have the original application, right? And we have the again, we have the minutes of the meeting where they were approved. The documentation that's missing is essentially the notification.
Do we have the application? I haven't seen that.
Okay. Again, I think that was the application, Joe, among the documents that were circulated by email.
Yeah, I think they were. I can double check.
Is that something that was circulated to all the commissioners? Because I got the afternoon email from Joe talking about the Shea application, but it didn't mention anything about this.
Okay, I received that in an email. I don't know how far it got distributed, to tell you the truth. It came in this afternoon and
I would prefer to defer the decision until the next meeting where we have a chance to at least review the information that we're talking about.
oh,
Yeah, there's a copy in that list of emails. Megan Lawley had a copy of the application. I can send it to Mindy.
If you have it, you can share your screen if you have it right now. I enabled it so everybody has permission.
Okay, where do I do that?
So if you move your cursor, it says share screen and it's in a
I
green
see.
button in the bottom middle. And then they'll pop up windows and you just select whatever window it's in.
You see that?
Yep.
Yeah, this is the application.
So essentially what we're looking at is the conditions of the application. And again, the proposal here is simply to do somewhat less than what was originally requested. And since that activity was permitted, I don't see any need to revisit that application.
I understand what you're saying, Vice Chairman Elliott. I just fundamentally opposed to something coming before the commission that we've had no heads up on. And it comes here, during the meeting where you don't have time to review it and to make a jurisdictional decision on it. I think that is the wrong way for us to be doing business.
That's a valid point, and I would entertain, first of all, a withdrawal of the motion and a subsequent motion to defer further consideration till our next meeting.
If I may say one thing.
Mr. Hanfield.
Thank you. I apologize. I didn't mean to spring this on anyone and create confusion. We were actually trying to do, as the development of the plan came along, I tried to get it in Friday, and it was on me that you're not open Friday, so I missed the deadline. But what we were trying to do is make sure we're doing the right thing by basically showing you the plan and being upfront with that information that we are moving forward with the project. It is a similar project, but it is significantly less in scale. And we don't want to go forward with that whole project, but we wanted your blessing. So I understand the last minute notice and would be understanding either way, but with full discretion, we really wanted to make sure you could see the difference in the plan and how much less we are proposing, and be comfortable that we would hopefully fall under that original permit, because we do believe we could construct the original permit and the activities that were proposed on it, but we don't want to. We want to scale it back, and but we'll go either way. And again, I apologize for the last minute.
Okay, returning to the question at hand, we do have a motion on the floor, and we'd have to withdraw that motion and the second there too, in order to defer action. So who made the motion originally?
Larson did.
Okay, you want to withdraw that motion?
I would like to withdraw that motion.
Okay, and Mr. Hallisey, I believe you seconded.
I will withdraw my second, yes.
Okay, so back to the question. Mr. Larson, I think the motion here to defer further consideration to our next meeting would be in order.
I'll make a motion to defer consideration on the application for 344 Lake Road to our January meeting.
It's actually a jurisdictional ruling.
Would it be possible to see the two plans?
You want to see the plans again? I'm sorry.
Not tonight.
Yeah, I think we can get those posted on the website and all,
Yep,
you know,
okay.
get all that stuff taken care of. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
saying if we could see both the
yeah.
approved plan and what's currently proposed.
Yeah. And I, by the way, I do like the overlay that you did showing the difference.
I'll make sure you have both documents.
Okay.
Thank you.
So back to the fact, we've got a motion to defer further consideration. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Let's go to a vote on the motion. Commissioner Halsey,
Bye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe,
Aye.
and I, Vice Chair Elliott, vote aye, so the motion carries 4-0-0. We'll take up 344 Lake Road at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have new applications. First, IWWC 30-35 for activity construction at 436 Lake Road. Again, because this application is received effective this meeting, we will not be able to act on the application until our next meeting. But at this point, we can certainly entertain questions or comments from commissioners regarding the application and the supporting materials that were posted. If folks had a chance to look at this application. I have two questions. First to Commissioner Larson, Chair of PZC. Wouldn't this make a great test case for the proposed lake regulations?
It would.
Secondly, for all commissioners, should we schedule a site walk?
Larson thinks we should.
I think we should. Saturdays at 9 o'clock seems to our go-to time for site walks. This Saturday is supposed to be in the low 50s with a small chance of rain. But that's about as good a conditions as you can ask for at this time of year. So.
I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a site walk for this Saturday at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Allison would second that.
Okay, ask for a vote on that motion. Policy,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
and Elliott, aye. So sidewalk, 9 o'clock. We'll get an agenda up and we may have an addition to that on our next point. Okay.
Vice Chairman Elliott,
yes.
Would we have any other discussion on this application tonight?
Sure we can. I had asked for it earlier and didn't see anybody's hand raised. Go ahead.
So on the application in paragraph 9 for the proposed erosion and sediment control and other management practices, it does talk about minimizing pollution or other environmental damage, maintaining and enhancing the environmental quality. So I think, those words, and under it, it says, see the attached sheet. And I did not see an attached sheet that talked about mitigation factors that might be put into place to minimize the effect of the runoff into the lake that would be going on due to the proposed development. So I wondered if I was missing something.
A very good question. We might address that. Who's the, okay, is the applicant or engineer on this call? I think,
Yes,
yes, I see.
my
This is,
I'm Martu.
And John
okay.
is with us.
I think the attached sheets was the drawings, the site plan. Which shows sedimentation and erosion controls. It has said fence, down gradient of all this disturbance. Sorry, I don't have the technology to show you the drawings, so you have to have the drawings in front of you. But I believe that's what it was. I'm filling in for Jim Dutton. Jim Dutton had a ZBA meeting in another town, and he did the actual detail of the site plan. I've reviewed it. I'm his engineer of record.
I did look at the site plan, and what I was hoping is the intent of our zoning regulations for the lake, and it's to encourage property owners who are developing along the lake to provide, at the time of construction, significant mitigation to minimize stormwater runoff into the lake to prevent with the weed growth and algae growth and all that sort of thing. And so I was looking for maybe some measures like running the gutters from the house into a dry well, or something like that to mitigate the runoff from the driveway or something. And I didn't see any of that on the site plan.
Well, the driveway drains towards the road, and the gutters in the front of the house or on the road side of the house, I guess it would be the east portion of it. All those gutters are directed to drain away from the lake. Eventually, it'll end up in the lake, but this way it has a much longer run. There's a grass swale along the driveway. So those were some of the things that are proposed. There's ledge outcroppings in the area, so dry wells. I'm sure we could find one if that was insisted upon. But there was some thought taken to direct the runoff away, as much runoff as possible away from the lake.
Okay, and that's the kind of thing that we are looking for. As you say, the runoff, even if it goes towards the road, it will end up in the lake eventually. And so we are trying to minimize all of that to maintain the quality of the lake. And I'm sure that the new property owners or the potential property owners have a vested interest in making sure that our lake stays healthy going forward. And when they're building the property, that's the time to put these measures in the most cost-effective manner. So I would ask for their consideration of looking at that.
Correct. And Jim Dutton he'll be at the site walk Saturday with plans to he can expound on some of the details. The plan is very detailed.
If I can add to that, it's not just avoiding and mitigating runoff, but active measures to enhance the property and its ability to absorb runoff. So, active, certainly minimizing the impact is the first step, but then active measures to enhance quality as an offset for that construction activity.
Okay.
And again, I think Commissioner Larson has the greatest current familiarity with the proposed regulations and can probably offer some guidance on trying to achieve those goals. But for now, we'll again look forward to seeing you at the site walk at 9 o'clock. And again, we'll take up this application at our next regular meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments on 3035? Oh, one thing, I noticed that some of the PDF files associated with this application online were actually mislabeled and referred to 2033 97 Lakeside Drive. I expect it was just an accidental cut and paste in renaming files, but
Yes, was that on the plans or?
it was on the plans as they were posted. The
was
file
on-
names
that
that
was
were
on our
posted online, but that's probably whoever, I don't know who actually uploaded those to the town website.
Oh, okay. It's a
It
common.
wasn't your numbering, okay?
Ah.
It wasn't the engineer's numbering.
It's very common for somebody to miss cut and paste. Yes.
Okay, moving on. We have another new application. This is IWWC 2036 for number 26 Old Farms Road. Again, that's an application that we received in time for the meeting, but not in time to be included on the agenda, which is why we added it. This is an application that was stemmed from, we previously discussed the proposed work. It was brought to the commission previous meeting as a sort of hypothetical, and we now have the actual application. Again, since it's a new application, we won't be able to take action, but I will ask for questions and comments from commissioners if you've had a chance to review the application at this time.
Yeah, this is Allison. I have a question through the, well, of the board, whether they feel it's significant activity that would require public.
That's a good question in two parts. First of all, is it a significant activity? There's probably good grounds for saying yes. However, I've re-evaluated, I looked closely at the regulations, and the regulations state that we shall hold a public hearing only if we determine it to be a significant activity. The regulations do not state that we must have a hearing if it's a significant activity. In other words, being a significant activity or significant impact is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for a hearing. My previous understanding, again, this was based on oral communication from our former wetlands agent, was to the effect that if it was a significant activity, we have to have a hearing. I now question that interpretation of the regulations based on my reading. Got that?
I do.
Okay.
I was just trying to avoid setting a public hearing later in the process.
Yeah,
That's
I
where
agree.
it's
If we're
going.
gonna have a hearing, it would be better to determine it now rather than
That's my point.
later. So, other comments? Mr. Larson, any?
I just reached over to get my regs because I was under the same misconception as you were, that if it was a significant activity, it would require a public hearing. So I'm just getting the book out so I can lay my eyes on the words as well. So I'll defer for a moment.
On the other hand, if a sidewalk is going to be set, commission may feel more comfortable making that determination after such time as they've seen the site.
Point well taken, and I certainly have on my notes for this item that we should schedule a site walk. Would it be agreeable to continue the special meeting site walk from 436 Lake Road and go across town to Old Farm Road?
If you're looking for a motion, I'd be happy to make one to that effect.
Okay, yeah.
Like, you set up a site walk for 26 Old Farm Road application to immediately follow the Lake Road site walk on Saturday coming.
Okay, we have a motion.
It'll be circa 9:30.
Larson will second.
Okay. So we have the motion for a sidewalk. I'll call for a vote. Again by roll call. Commissioner Halsey.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Elliott also votes aye. So the motion carries 4-0-0. We'll have a site walk following on Saturday, following the sidewalk on Lake Road. So that'll be our agenda for that special meeting. Okay, returning to the question about whether or not it's a significant activity.
Mrs. Larson, I would like to make a motion that the proposed activity is a significant activity.
All right, I have ask for a second on that.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to the effect that this is a significant activity as defined by regulation. Any comment or discussion on that motion? Commissioner Larson, you could speak to the basis for that.
Well, under of the different conditions for significant activity, it says any activity involving disposition or removal of material which will or may have a major substantial effect or significant impact on regulated area. And I have not seen the property, but I am under the impression that the proposed driveway is in a fairly steep section of the property and would require a significant amount of fill. And that's why I think that it might be a significant activity.
Yeah, it does involve fill and in fact, construction of concrete retaining walls for that fill over a culvert in the stream. Culvert to carry the water in that stream. And if you'll look at the site plan, you'll see that they're using interlocking concrete block to hold the fill. So I'm inclined to agree with you that it is a significant activity, significant impact on that water course. Any other discussion or comments?
I do have a comment going back to the proposed sidewalk.
Yeah.
I think we should clarify where folks should meet.
Yes, indeed. A good point, well taken. Do we have a suggestion from the engineer or owner as to an appropriate location to begin the site walk? I would think that the entrance to the driveway or the proposed entrance to the driveway would be reasonable.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, we can meet at the turnaround at the cul-de-sac of Pine Ridge.
Okay. Jim, does that answer your?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking at, just lost it, section. I'm sorry, I lost my place in the document regarding, okay, section 9, public hearings. Section 9.1 says, the commission shall not hold a public hearing on an application unless the commission determines that the proposed activity may have a significant impact on wetlands or watercourses, comma, a petition signed by at least 25 persons who are 18 years of age or older and who reside in the municipality in which the regulated activity is proposed, so forth. So we may issue a permit without a public hearing, provided no petition provided for in the section is filed with the commission. So again, based on my reading of section 9.1, the determination that it's a significant activity does not entail a hearing. It authorizes, it would allow us to hold a hearing, it would justify a hearing, but it doesn't require it.
And Mr. Larson, I agree with what you had just said.
Good. Glad to have a accord here. So returning then to the motion regarding significant activity. We have the motion in second. We've had discussion. Any further discussion? I'll call for a vote on the motion by roll call. Commissioner Hallisey.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Elliott. Aye. So the motion carries 4-0-0. We have ruled that it is a significant activity, and we have scheduled a site walk for, let's say it'll be about 9:30, 9:45 before we can get there. And I suppose that if we have some means of notifying you, we could do so immediately as we leave the prior site walk, give you a heads up.
We can pass a phone number on to maybe Joe and get that distributed.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Okay, that'll work. Great. Okay, so I think that we can now move on to
Mr.
our agenda. Pardon?
Chairman, what?
Yeah.
I
Agent
just
Wagner.
suggest that you maybe have the applicants give a quick presentation of their application.
We'll have we really can't consider the application until the next meeting. And it's something that's come before the commission previously, at least in a conceptual manner. And we've got a rather lengthy agenda here. So I'd rather move on. We'll have the site walk. We've got the plans, the site, detailed site plans. And I think we'd be better off to defer further consideration of this until our next regular meeting, when we'll actually be able to take action on the application. Unless any of the commissioners wish to hear more about the application at this time. Okay. Thanks to the applicants for attention, and again, I would like to move on because we still have several items to consider. In particular, item 8A, which has been on our plate for quite some time now. Application WWC 2027 for activities at 129 Hebron Road. As previously noted during the conclusion of the hearing, we have a significantly revised plan. Would the applicants or their agent like to summarize and present those revisions?
Can you hear me right now?
I can,
Can you hear Russ Heinz, applicant agent?
Oh, okay, this
Do you
is
hear
860-798.
Yeah, 798-6160.
Okay, you're not identified on screen here, so.
What is your
Thank
name
God.
again? What is your
Russell
name?
Heinz. Russell Heinz. I'm a principal with Tarbell and Heinz, the preparer of the plans.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So I just quickly, I didn't think we could talk after a public hearing was closed. So,
Well, we're now in the meeting.
okay, I realize that, but I thought I was supposed to present my stuff at the public hearing, but I'll present it now. So, I was told by Joe, your wetland agent, and as the commission, that you were not happy with the location of the pool, of the shed, of the garage, and we moved it as much as I could to meet the health code and to stay away from the wetlands as far as I could and keep what my client wants to have, and which is what you have in front of me. And I did try to make it a little more clear to you how we, what was existing and what was proposed. And I believe the shaded is the proposed and everything else is existing.
Okay. And we're
As far
referring
as-
here to site plan revised 11/25/20.
Exactly.
Correct.
And as far as the septic system, that was approved back in, I want to say 17 by the health department. I've not really changed that. And the only reason that's not been built yet is because according to the health code, until that system fails, or until they add any additional, as in the garage, which has got the apartment, if they hook that up, if they need to add something to that system, then that has to be put in. But until now, as of right now, that septic system does not have to be installed. So that's kind of why it's the way it is at this point. But the addition has all been done, the house is built, and they're just really want to put their wall up.
Okay. Now, as I look at the plan,
Any questions?
the fence now stops at a mark about 100 feet.
Basically at your regulator.
Outside of the regulated area, correct?
Yep.
Terminates outside the regulated area. The pool has and the garage apartment have both been moved closer to the existing structure, so further away from wetlands.
From the wetlands.
Right. Okay. Then I would like to ask commissioners if they have any questions or comments regarding the revised application. Commissioner Halsey, you had questions regarding the original application of these revisions.
No, I have no.
Okay, so these revisions essentially satisfied your original questions?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Larson, do you have any questions or comments regarding the revisions?
I just had a question on the septic design going to the leach field. Am I reading the drawing correct, that we're pumping that uphill? It's not flowing downhill, we're pumping uphill.
That's correct.
Yeah, that was the only question I had.
Okay, Commissioner Monroe, do you have any questions about the proposal?
It looks like it's, the wall is going to stop right along that 100-foot upland review area.
Yeah.
That's what I was told by my client to do, or I was told by that's what you wanted, and that's my client agreed to that, and that's where it'll stop.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
So let me just make sure that the commissioners are ready to act on this application. Obviously, we've been on it quite some time now, and we've seen some extensive revision of the plan in relation to concerns that we raised. Again, I'll simply point out for the record, these were not things that we specifically requested, but asked to be addressed based on the input we received from a reviewing engineer and from public comment on the previous hearing. As far as I'm concerned, I would be ready to entertain a motion to approve the application with standard conditions as it is currently revised.
Chairman Elliott, I was wondering if we could get the agent to address if there were any additional conditions of approval that he would recommend to us for this application.
Certainly. Mr. Wagner?
I can't think of anything specific that I would want to add.
And currently, we're looking only at activities in the upland review area. And you know, with a portion of the building and the pool both being within the upland review area, at least in almost majority of those construction activities would be in the upland review area. We've really taken all of the wetlands impact off the table at this point.
This is Larson. I'll make a motion to approve the application subject to standard conditions of approval.
Okay. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the application as modified with standard conditions. Application IWWC 20-27, 129 Hebron Road. Any further discussion on the motion, on the application? And I'll call for a vote by roll call. Commissioner Hallisey.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Elliott also votes aye. The motion carries 4-0-0. Agent Wagner will pass the ball to you to issue the permit. That'll be in 2 weeks because, of course, we still have to allow for public comment on the application. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. So moving on with the agenda, the next item is application number 20-30 for the bridge activity on Cider Mill. We haven't received any further information on the application per se. However, there has been some communication with our attorney and with the applicants regarding that. Agent Wagner, could you bring the commission up to speed with a summary of what's transpired with respect to this application?
Nothing really. I haven't gotten anything new. We did the site walk on the 14th. That was it. I don't have any new. I didn't have any requests from the commission to seek any more information from it, and we didn't receive any. So
Right. Well, of course, as of the sidewalk, we were just gathering information. And I think now is the time for the commission to speak up on the application and its adequacy or inadequacy, as the case may be. I do have some comments, but I'll wait for other commissioners to put an oar in first.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this a temporary bridge or is this going to be permanent?
According to my reading of the, my understanding of the application, they intend for this bridge to be a permanent structure.
I just asked that because I've seen that brook. I'm sure you have go crazy when it floods.
Exactly. Yeah, you've raised a very good point there. Essentially, it seems to me that the application is far from complete. We just don't have enough information about the construction of the bridge or its potential environmental impact. You know, we saw on the sidewalk approximately where it's going to go, but there was no delineation of the exact landings on either the east or west side of the brook. We were told that it would be, you know, land on the west side of the brook such that it would avoid the steepest part of the grade on the western bank, and on the eastern bank, it would land on what appears to me to be floodplain that would be northerly of the existing driveway pad. Everybody had that same impression, but there was really no plan for the bridge. We had a sort of a generic bridge design, and we had a general location and a general assertion that that there would be no excavation for footings to support the center of the bridge, which would be two spans meeting in the middle. Okay, but you know, as I say, we just really don't have much of a plan there, and questions such as Commissioner Monroe just raised about flooding events. We've seen Saddle Brook in full roar, and I can't imagine that a bridge at that level wouldn't obstruct flow and catch debris and so on and so forth. So it would have to have impact on the water course.
Okay.
But we can't evaluate. Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, this policy. I do have concerns. Obviously, that it's a substantial bridge that would require an approach on either side, which I have to assume would require fill and grading. I understand too, the applicant was just some feedback where they proceeded too far into this. I do appreciate that. That's what concerns with what happens on the other side with any vehicles. That's fairly steep hill. I say vehicles. My understanding it would be it's only intended right now for equipment for repair, but nonetheless, I mean, it's a bridge that's going in there in perpetuity for all intents and purposes. Yeah, I have a big concern about Also, I'm curious as to whether would trigger a stream encroachment permit. I don't know I don't know when a stream encroachment permit is required. Just came to mind that might be one required in.
Point well taken. And I certainly couldn't address that question myself. Again, as we say, it does seem that it's quite likely to interfere with the watercourse, maybe not under normal conditions, but under anticipated high water conditions, it almost certainly would interfere with flow. There's also the question of whether any alternatives exist. I'm going to have to switch over here, excuse me a moment while I pull up that application. Minnie, could you put that application on the screen for sharing? So 20-30.
Yep.
Thank you.
What part would you like me to scroll to?
Scroll down to, well, essentially, we're looking at number 9. Which calls for alternatives considered and subsequently rejected by the applicant, and why the alternative set forth on the application was chosen. All such alternatives shall be diagrammed on site plan or drawing. Well, we don't have a proper site plan. Well, we've got a sketch, but we don't have any consideration of alternatives. And again, my understanding here is that there may be a possibility of accessing the property via an easement from an adjoining property. Now that would be complicated, but that's not our concern. Okay. There we go. So again, what we have is a generic drawing for a short span timber bridge and an approximate location on the map, but we don't really have a site plan showing any of the topographic features. None of the detail that I think would be required for evaluation. With that in mind, I would propose that we defer further consideration of this application pending receipt of further information from the applicants. I certainly don't think we could accept this application. Yeah, Commissioner Halsey?
I'm just curious if the applicant is available and if maybe we could give them some more direction.
Right, yeah, we do need to give them direction on that. And I don't know if is the applicant or agent on the call.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Perhaps Agent Wagner and I could work together to summarize the aspects of the application that would require attention.
Yeah, I could come up with a list and send it to them, work with them to try and get a more detailed plan for next month.
Yeah. Again, the real key is the site plan, the impacts, and potential alternatives. Again, as in the email correspondence that you had with Attorney Brandt.
Vice Chairman Elliott, did you say there was some information from Attorney Brandt with respect to this application?
It was not on the application per se. It was more an advisory regarding such applications, and especially the question of the alternatives. We can certainly forward that information to the commission. I don't know if it should be part of the record for the application or not. I want to take that under advisement, but I certainly think that it could be shared with the commission.
I would also recommend that one of the alternatives that they might consider is making the bridge where they proposed it a temporary bridge. If they're moving the equipment in and out during dry season, that's totally different than having a bridge there year round with the significant rushing through the brook.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that would be a good question to raise. Would a temporary bridge, a temporary span, suffice for the purpose? The only downside I could see there, Jerry, would be that if they wanted then subsequently to do some more work, they'd have to reapply for a permit for another temporary crossing. But yeah, that would certainly, having a temporary crossing in the dry season would obviate a lot of our concern.
The reality is it's not a timber bridge. It appears to be a designed lumber. It's engineered lumber bridge, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it says timber on the little picture, but cross section, it's engineered lumber, and it's significant projects.
Yeah, it's a bridge.
It's a lot of expense for a temporary crossing. That.
Not quite on the same scale as the covered bridge downstream, but still.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else on this? We don't have any motions or anything on it, so I think we could move on if we're ready. And again, the understanding is that we'll communicate our concerns and requirements to the applicants to be addressed at our next meeting. Okay, application number 2032, 85 Lakeside Drive. We've had one new, well, we've got additional information on that. Namely, we received notification of approval by the Andover Lake Management Association. So it's good to go from that point of view. Okay, I see Mr. Minor is patiently online as a representative for the owner. And I'll ask, let's see, any questions or comments from commissioners on this application?
This is Larson, and I had a question concerning the transporting of the rock for the rock wall down to the lake. And I guess my question is in the form of a surprise as I walk around the lake at 422 Lake Road, where all of a sudden I see a temporary road installed that leads down to the lake. And I know that's a very reputable contractor that's putting that wall in over there. It was just certainly not expected by me when we discussed the application. So I was wondering what kind of precautions or whatever you were taking to protect the ground or whatever to get the rock down there.
Typically we use a skid steer when we did the property at, I believe it was 210 Lake Road last year. We just used the skid steer to bring the stone down to the site. What little bit we used there, we didn't use a lot there, to be honest, but and there was not a significant, I mean, there was considerable amount of traffic with heavy machinery going up and down the hill between the excavator and the skid steer. And there was not really a significant amount of soil erosion to the property. And although the site on last year's project, the hill, I would say is comparable in pitch is to 85 Lake Road. It's not as long. It wasn't as long. Last year's project wasn't as long of a run. But we didn't experience, and we had some pretty heavy rains. And like I mentioned on the site walk, we always keep bales of hay on site in case we are, predicting any kind of heavy storms coming. So we didn't really have any issues with runoff into the water. The hill on the last year's project was much closer to the lake than this one. There's a much more flatter run out at 85 Lakeside. So I don't really foresee any issues with that. I was surprised myself to see the stone dust road that the other company put in. I can't remember the name of the company now. I've never seen anybody do that before, to be quite honest.
Jeff, could you perhaps mulch your haul route? I know that's one way of avoiding compaction and erosion in those situations.
You could put mulch down, yeah.
Just, wood chips kind of thing.
Yeah. In my opinion, I would be concerned about bringing a foreign wood chip material and have that run in to the lake, to be really honest with you. And that was my actual thought with that stone dust driveway that the other company put in over at McGuire's property. I was a little surprised because, I mean, that's an unwashed material that they brought in from a sand and gravel pit. I mean, if we had that heavy rains and that were to wash into the lake, I don't know what kind of impact that would have on the lake. That would be my concern only. I know last year, John Valenti asked us to put wood chips behind the wall where we had seeded. He wanted to see wood chips there. And that did wash into the lake during some heavy rains. So I'm not sure if that's a viable option. Like I said, we don't really have a lot of issues with the runoff. We've done 2 walls on the other side of the lake 2 years in a row. Both years we didn't have any issues with it at all.
Okay.
Not sure if that
This
answers your
isn't a
question.
case, this isn't a case where you wait until the ground is frozen necessarily.
The ground doesn't really freeze anymore. So no, we don't. I would rather the ground be somewhat frozen, except for obviously when we're excavating the, the lake area where we're going to build the wall, I'd rather it not be frozen solid. As of right now, nothing's frozen. I don't see any cold weather in the near future. So, but again, like I said, last year, past two previous years, we didn't experience any runoff whatsoever down into the lake.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on the application? Okay, I'm certainly ready to entertain a motion.
You've got mail.
To approve the application for construction of the lake wall and fire pit at 85 Lakeside Drive, IWC 20-32.
Larson, I'll make a motion to approve application 20-32 for 85 Lakeside Drive.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Sorry, I was distracted by a couple of incomings. I'll go for a roll call. Commissioner Halsey.
Aye.
Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
Commissioner Monroe.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Elliott, also aye. Motion carries 4-0-0. Again, Agent Wagner, you'll communicate decision, 2-week lag time, etc., standard conditions to apply.
Okay.
But you'll be good to go. Now let's move on to the really vexing application, number 2033, 97 Lakeside Drive. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to take action on this one tonight because we don't have any new materials, and in particular, we don't have any indication of ALMA approval. I believe you said that, Jeff, that you'd requested it, but
I did. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what happened there. Sorry.
Somebody's got to go shake the branch, as it were.
I have to shake the tree one more time, I guess. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not overly concerned about that. That was not my primary application that I was concerned with. The 85 was my priority for now.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming.
A paid job.
Excuse me?
A paid job.
Yes, a paid job is more important than spending.
Than home improvements.
So yeah, I guess I will have to contact Alcoa and find out what happened with that. I talked to Jeff Hayes, I believe it was Saturday. He said he was emailing over his approval letter. I assumed, obviously wrongly, that implicated multiple letters, I guess is the word I was looking for. And he only approved the 85, but like I said, I'm not going to lose sleep over that.
Okay. Truthfully, we could use somewhat better detail in your plans and proposal for that activity.
Sure. What would you?
Well, again, better detail on the wall. We discussed, when we had the sidewalk, you showed us the patio area, but we still don't have dimensions and areas that would be involved. So something that's closer to an actual site plan.
For
as
both the
opposed to
wall and the
conceptual.
patio?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the wall and the patio were.
Yeah, I do realize I was somewhat vague because the whole thing was kind of like, well, let's get 2 permits while we're getting 1, and I hadn't really put too much thought into the lake house. Honestly, it probably won't even get done this year, but all right, better site plans. Okay, I can do that. Wall and patio. Okay.
Anything else from commissioners? Larson, you already commented on the haul route for the previous one, so I suppose that question would also apply, and the answer would be just about the same if you're having to move stone. And
I would also make a follow-up request that the homeowner consider mitigation measures for the stormwater that runs down into the lake there. In the ideal world, that would include the gutters draining into a dry well kind of thing when you're putting the patio up, and
Right.
that'd be great.
All right, we did talk about that, yep. And yeah, we haven't solved that conundrum with the whole driveway. I think we have probably more runoff coming off the driveway than we do on the downspout drains, and I haven't quite figured that out just yet. But yes, we did talk about downspout drain, dry wells and whatnot. So I will make note of that.
Okay, any other questions or concerns regarding the application? If not, I think, Jeff, we can let you go and proceed on to our next agenda item.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Item number 9, and 9B and 9A and 9B, both being tightly linked enforcement actions. Let's start with number 41. We did receive some additional materials on that. Agent Wagner, would you care to pick up the ball here and describe what you've seen? And Mindy, if you could bring up the photos that were posted online regarding the remediation at 41, enforcement action at 41 Route 87. And I see that the owner is online and now visible. Okay, here we go. No, this is a different set of photos. This regards 33. The photos, and I'm sure I can't share a screen here.
Are they emailed to me or are they on the website?
They're
They
on the
should be
web.
on the website.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were uploaded. It's labeled 4187, 41 Route 87. Photos submitted. Let's see, bone violation pictures, right?
They're under enforcement actions, not application. That last one.
Okay, Agent Wagner, take it away.
I spoke to Kurt, the property owner for 31 Route 87 last week. They were in the process of doing this work. I haven't visited the site since it was late last week that I talked to him. He sent me these pictures. This one's a view, let's see, view of remediated section of 41 Route 87. Looking southeast section of 33 Route 87 towards 41 Route 87 property. So you can see 41 Route 87 in the background there. You can see the straw bales. And then they mentioned, Kurt mentioned that they were gonna put straw and grass seed down to stabilize the area as much as the grass will grow in December. And then their guy doing the site work painted a line to demonstrate the areas that where the fill was removed. And this is a view from the opposite way, looking towards Route 87 from the back of the area.
Okay, so we have some indication here that then that the approved contractor has engaged in remediation efforts on the 41 Route 87 side of the watercourse.
Yes.
But you haven't yet visited the site to verify the scope of the work and whether it's essentially adequate.
Not yet. No.
Okay. So at least some progress is being made. Now you represented also that there would be no, that activities on the other side of the creek at the 33 Route 87 side would not commence until the work at 41 was completed. And they have to move the shed.
Yeah, that and the appeal window for the permit just that just expired on Saturday. So they started the 41 first. That was the priority according to Kurt.
Okay. And again, you haven't visited to ascertain if anything has been done subsequent to that communication.
I have not.
Okay. Now, on the other side of the creek, we have some communication from the property owner and a couple of photographs. I don't know if those have been posted or is there, or no, Minnie, you have those, right? In the email, the photographs you started to show of views of 33 Route 87 from 41, right, okay. Now, I can't interpret these photographs but I believe the photographer and the landowner is on the call. So Ms. Nichols, if you could explain what you're trying to convey here. Hello, Ms. Nichols, can you unmute?
Yeah, I'm sorry that I was muted. Okay. So the corner that you could kind of see, that's the flat area. That was the work that Mark Williams has been excavating. And the view that you are seeing with all those rocks, that's the part that's on the other side of the hay bales that you don't see. And this deposition was done, as you can see, in December 2019, and 1 year later, it is still there. And that was needed to be put there so the shed that was not permitted can be platformed. And those boulders are still there. And I just wanted to make sure that that is going to be part of the remediation. When I spoke to Mark Williams, he told me that he was focusing on the land that was closer to the stakes, and that's what you saw that he did work on. That's why it's all flat and gradient. But he was not going to do anything with the bank of the stream because that's not what he was contracted to do. So that is when I took the view of these rocks and boulders because he gave me the impression that this was something that he was not even going to touch. And that's clearly in the wetlands area. And I know that you said that the priority was 41 Route 87,
Well,
but
not priority, but simply the first order of business.
okay, because the violation has been since February, and now all of a sudden December 1st, it seems like it's a priority. So I just wanted to make sure, because of what he did for the shed, that's where all these boulders are, and that's not even the first thing that he's working on. He's working on clearing his land and making that flat, rather than working with the area that could potentially directly affect the brook, the wetland area, which is obviously my concern with my house being down a hill that empties into a brook that could potentially be dammed. I just don't know how much longer this needs to go on, where we just wait for Kurt's priority rather than our priority and an enforcement action. I've been to 7 different, every month I come to this meeting and something is always prolonged because it's not Mr. Boham's agenda or priority. And we just keep doing whatever he wants to do on his agenda rather than anybody else's. And it's just very, very frustrating, as I state in every meeting, and I'm hoping that it gets recorded in the minutes each time that we look for progress, and it's only when it's convenient for Mr. Bohem, not when it's convenient for the other people that it's affecting.
Take your point, and again, without having direct familiarity with the work that has been done, I will can only refer this to Agent Wagner to follow up. And again, as we said at our last meeting, we really do want to see some action on this. But the commission does not enforce. The commission rules. We can only work through our agent to get things done. And I know that Agent Wagner has been active and tried to communicate with
well, he clearly
Mr. Boehm, and if Mr. Boehm isn't following up, then we can. Then the only thing we can do as a next step would be to try to. Well, we would basically have to take it to court.
Well, we've been saying this. I mean, in September, I hopefully recorded the minutes. One of you stated, if that shed is not moved, I don't care if he moves it to his front yard, we will take action. We will take action. I continue to hear the same thing. Agent Wagner stated he talked to Mr. Bohem. He said this is what he's doing. We've been talking to Mr. Bohem since September. It's now December 1st, and now we are just starting to take action. And again, it's just a recycled saying that I'm just hearing over and over again, the same thing. We could only do so much. Well, it seems Mr. Bohem could do whatever he wants. So we're at the point where we're going to do what we want to our side of the brook, because it doesn't matter. The commission is not going to do anything. That's basically
I
the
wouldn't
that we're
take
getting.
that attitude if I were you. I think it would be ill-advised to take matters into your own hands here.
It's just my frustration is.
The point is, yes, I realize it's going very slowly, and that there have been a number of delaying factors, such as getting approval for the contractor. I mean, that was a big hitch for a long time there. And then contractor got approved and the contractor was ready to do the work. And it seems that he started the work, but again, based on the information we have present and the information you provided, obviously, he hasn't done but half a job. And a lot more is going to be required, including moving the shed. You know,
I don't mean to
because the
cut.
shed
you
has got to be
off.
relocated
I
before
know
anything
what
can be
needs
done
to
on
be done.
the riverbank.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I know what needs to be done. I know what's been done. It's just very frustrating when I come to meetings. I've come to 12 meetings, and we're still having these meetings about it. I have a contractor's information since August. He started December 1st. Okay, so my time is valuable, just like I appreciate your time is valuable, but 12 months on the same issue, we all know what the issue is, but we also know who is dictating when it's going to be done. So I don't understand where the enforcement is.
Well, again, appreciate your concern, and I think we will continue to try and get things moving. But as I said, the commission per se cannot enforce, and frankly, the regulations are such that the process is slow. We will.
So how do I contact your lawyer or attorney
You
to go
don't.
to the next level?
You don't.
Well, then why would I want to come to a meeting and even have this on your agenda if nothing
To
is going
provide information about what's happening. Because absent that, we don't even know that there's still an issue. We get some follow-up, but you know, you were the one who initiated the action in the first place.
right?
And we're relying on you in part and your role here.
So would you like a weekly update every Monday? Should I give an update?
No, because we won't be able to receive it.
Okay, well,
We
I
meet
mean, I
once
sent
a
it through an
month. We
email.
meet
So
every 2 weeks.
I
You
could
could
send it
certainly
every
be in
2 weeks.
you could certainly be in contact with Agent Wagner.
I do hear, I
You have,
appreciate he
okay.
sends me the email for the agenda and I respond with concerns, but I don't feel my concerns are being addressed. They're just being appeased by putting me on the agenda. I mean, if you look, I have all the agendas printed. I have 12 months of agendas with my name on it.
Mhm.
12
That's
months is
right.
a
It's a
long time.
continuing problem. It is a
Well, then
continuing
how
problem.
do we
And
rectify this? We just wait for somebody else to be convenient for them? And I hope that my basement doesn't flood or my front yard doesn't flood and then I have issues. I just have to cross my fingers and hope that Mother Nature is going to be good to us.
And we, the commission, have to continue to try to get Mr. Bohm to act. We do that, as I said, first via our agent, and failing that, we have to initiate legal action. Trust me, that will not be fast either.
Right. In my January minutes, sorry, my July minutes, it says that you would be contacting your attorney to look into legal action. That was the July minutes. It is now December. So should I be the one asking for the attorney follow-up? What is the action that you are now taking? This was in the minutes that you guys have posted that you would be contacting the attorney for legal action. So
we did not, I don't believe that we said that we would. We said we might consider, and that's a different matter. We said failing action, and in any event,
I'll have to
legal action would be a matter of last resort.
Okay.
It won't get anything, you know, nothing will happen quickly if it has to go to court, especially under present conditions where court actions are curtailed.
My concern is
COVID
not
restrictions. I understand your concern. You're worried about flooding, and that's a valid concern. Our concern is how to get this done and how to light a fire under Mr. Bohm to make it happen. And again, I'm going to have to refer to Agent Wagner as the point person for that. And I hope that the commission is in agreement that this should probably take highest priority in his activities. That, you know, we know what needs to be done. You know, that the plan for remediation and the approved relocation of the shed are all there. So, you know, it seems to me simply a matter of getting that work to be done. Now that we, you know, given that we know what needs to be done, how do we get Mr. Bohm to follow on those requirements?
Yeah, this has been since February. He knew what needed to be done and you've been asking him to follow. So that's just,
Well, that's not entirely true because there was the whole shed issue and the shed had to be moved before anything could be, before the fill on his side of the creek could be addressed. And the permit for the shed was first denied and then approved. So, you know, delays, structural delays, systemic delays occurred. And well, that may be aggravating. It's also
all due respect,
necessary.
Commissioner Elliott, I mean, I don't want to, you guys have been on for 2.5 hours. We don't need to rehash. We all know what's been going on. I just wanted to be listening to what the commission was doing about it. So you don't have to rehash the timeline. I know that. We all know that. We're all part of this. So whatever you need to do to move on.
Vice Chairman Elliott, I do have a question.
Yeah.
At the last meeting, we discussed the fact that we would be getting a remediation plan. And I see we have not got one of those. Do we have a due date by which we expect to get the plan from Mr. Bohm?
I can't answer that question immediately because I've got to refer to the documents. Let's see now.
I know I didn't see anything new online on a remediation plan. And so my suspicion is that we probably have not given him a deadline to present the plan. And we need to do that so that we can be ready to take legal action.
On your August 3rd minutes, it states, George Elliott said the commission can construct a timeline in terms of the legal requirement of what the commission needs to do for the next steps. And they would be contacting the attorney if they don't get any action. And that was on the August 3rd meeting. That I know it was speaking to the timeline of action, but again, that was discussed back in August about steps not being followed and what is the timeline for that, so.
Yeah, that was in response to the letter from your attorney about effectuating the order.
Yep.
And I think that that was sidelined by the shed application and the discussion stating that, you know, you had given permission for the contractor to access the property. That's what I'm seeing from the last minutes.
Right, that was all
And it
August.
seemed at that point that things were beginning to move forward. And
Right.
obviously they moved very, very little. I mean, the forward motion is simply, it's moving, but it isn't moving very much is the problem. You know, the job has been started, but it doesn't seem to show any signs of current progress. You're saying there hasn't been any current progress. And the issue now is to, you know, how can we get Mr. Bohm to get the job finished?
So when I go back and then look at the September 15th meeting, when you were asking for information for a permit application for the shed, as well as to remove all the deposition material from that area in the slope, that's when Agent Wagner recommended Mr. Bohem to follow the plan and remove the material concurrently with the file permit modification. And Agent Wagner confirmed that no action at that time was taken or to remediate. And Agent Wagner said that attorney Mark Braham was informed and the next step would be for the town to take legal action through the state Supreme Court. And they
Superior Court.
directed Wagner to contact attorney Brantz if no progress was made and draft a motion for the next step discussed at the October meeting. However, at that October meeting, there was not this discussion. So it was noted in your September minutes that this is what the steps should be, but that was not followed up in the October meeting.
Again, I'll simply state that it seemed that progress was being made without recourse to legal action, and that it now appears that such action is proceeding simply by fits and starts, and that we need to goad Mr. Bohm into finishing the work that's been started.
And then on your October meeting, again, you said the next step of the commission would be communicate with your attorney regarding injunctions, fines, and Superior Court, and Agent Wagner should communicate again the next step and the importance with Mr. Bohem. So again, there's 3 months in a row where you are stating that there should be some going forward with information, talking to your attorney, and some legal action. And then unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the November meeting, and there seems to be no discussion. When I wasn't present at that meeting, there's nothing listed in the, sorry, I take that back.
We did actually discuss that, and that was when we came up that no, I'm sorry, I lost the minutes there.
Yeah, I found them. Yep.
Actions.
And it looked,
You know, our minutes from the November 2nd meeting do indicate that we had continued discussion.
yeah, and it
and
basically, it also states, just suggestion on where the shed could be moved, but it doesn't, again, it's talking about still waiting to receive the permit, and the cease and correct order should be enforced independently of the shed. So again, now this is 3 months prior, we were talking about following up with legal action. Then we had something a little bit, and now the shed application has expired and there's still no change. So,
Well, let me ask Agent Wagner here about the situation with the shed. We basically turned that over, the shed application, because it was an upland review area.
Yeah, the permit was issued to relocate the shed 10 feet. There was a 15-day appeals period. I issued the I forget what day, it was like mid-November that I issued the permit. But anyway, the appeal period just expired Saturday. So that would be I advised Kurt that it was probably best to wait till the appeal period was over before just did anything with the shed. And they were, you know, at the time I was talking to them, they were in the course of working on 41 Route 87 anyway. So it kind of lined up time-wise that they could start working on the shed. And like I said, I haven't been there. I haven't talked to him since then, so I don't know what's happened. That was Thursday. So
nothing.
Should we not have a remediation plan before we actually execute the non-plan?
We had engineering recommendations for remediation that included, you know, removal of debris, installation of geofabric and riprap. You know, all that has been communicated early on in the process. So it seemed to
We
me
as a commission didn't act on that to say whether or not that was sufficient. That was by the same engineer that, yeah, that recommended moving the shed 4 feet.
that was my follow-up question. That's Andrew Bushnell, the civil engineer. There were 7 recommendations that he gave. When I talked to Mark Williams, I want to say he was only going to do 4 of those. There was nothing that had to do with the grading of the slope, and that he was basically just removing and putting the bales of hay. So that's why I also wanted to follow up to make sure that, I would guess, either Agent Wagner or Andrew Bushnell be the one to go and sign off that it was done back to its original. Again, my bigger concern, and you saw that pile of rocks, is that because of gravity, they're going to fall into the stream and it's going to dam it all up. So
I think they're at their angle of repose, but in any
they
event,
weren't there originally and they're on my property. So I guess then I will have to do a trespass thing or something. That's what I'm just trying to figure out.
yeah. But it sounds like from your communication, the contractor may be misinformed as to what's really required here.
And that's, I think, what I wanted to make sure that was communicated through Agent Wagner is, like Commissioner Larson was saying, like, we have this remediation process, but that doesn't mean that that's what's communicated to somebody who's actually commissioned to do the work.
Right.
So that was something I also wanted to make sure, like, we have this plan in place. And is it being followed, or is it just somebody else's interpretation of what needs to be done to satisfy the commission when, again,
Sure.
yes, it's the wetlands, yes, it's my property. So if I have to do something for my end, for my property, that's what I need to do, but I was really hopeful that the town was going to do that because it is in the wetlands area.
Okay. Again, Jed, you raised the point about remediation plan. All we have that I can find is the original order to remediate. Which the final, the penultimate paragraph, the order states that they have to be remediated within 100 feet. I believe that, let's see now, where are the recommendations from?
I have those.
Engineer Bushnell. Was that included in the permit application for the shed? The permit application that we denied.
I think you were treating them separately.
But they were linked. Again, we could,
Yeah, the 7 points that I have from Andrew Bushnell is that the shed should be relocated 6 feet north. Phil was going to be removed and relocated closer to away from the stream in a level area. Hay bales will be installed for erosion control, removal of any visible debris or large stones from the embankment. And then this geotextile should be installed along with a layer of riprap rock over the geotextile and then loam, seed, and mulch. Those are the 7 recommendations.
right. And
it's my understanding that Mr. Williams was communicated about the hay bales, removing stuff that was on our property line, but he didn't even go near the embankment in that.
okay. So, Agent Wagner, do you have the recommendations from Engineer Bushnell regarding remediation, especially as regards to the removal of materials following the relocation of the shed?
Well, they were incorporated into the application.
Yeah,
that you,
that's what I thought. And so, but since the original application, no, were those carried forward? Sorry, my recollection is served. Were those recommendations carried forward into the reapplication?
Yeah, the geotextile, the riprap, the removal
yeah.
of fill, and then relocation of the shed was changed from 6 feet to 10 feet.
Okay, so getting back to Commissioner Larson's question, yeah, there is a sufficient plan for remediation. You know, it's again, the sticking point is to get Mr. Bohm and his contractor to get the work done. And since the work has started, it's a matter of getting some progress, and getting some progress that's not just in fits and starts and not just dependent on, well, my contractor wants to schedule at some other time, or, and I don't know, again, legal action, although perhaps the threat of legal action might speed things up, legal action per se isn't going to make it happen any faster.
It will prove a point to him that it's not on his budget when it's convenient for him.
I think that's what we have to communicate. As I say, the legal action would simply defer any action, any activity, until it goes through the courts.
Well, I like
And I
that
think we'd rather,
Commissioner
we'd rather
Larson
see it get done sooner.
talking
than
about a
it is
timeline.
required.
There's no timeline. It's basically whenever it's convenient. So I like Commissioner Larson's suggestion of having a timeline.
Can we agree that perhaps the agent Wagner should meet with, or discuss the parameters of work, the extent of what work is actually required? That seems to be the big issue right here. I mean, there's equipment on site, hay bales are there. I have no idea what the contractor schedule is. It seems to be moving forward. Problem that, as I see it, is seems to be perhaps the extent of work isn't clear. Somebody,
It might be clearer. I don't know what the timeline is. And like I said, they're working on one particular area, and that's not even the area to me that's near the wetland that is gonna, the slope and all that stuff. I get it, he's clearing that area, it's off my property, but what about the other part of the property where the actual brook is? I would have thought that would have been the first priority, getting the deposition away from the brook. And when I talked to Mark Williams, he wasn't under the impression that he was gonna have to do the slope or anything like that. So that's why I was like, well, wait a second. Yeah, it's nice that you're gonna get it off my property, but I'm bigger concern is the brook. What's gonna happen to the brook?
so I guess there just needs to be some clarification as to what home is responsible for.
Right, and I think that is covered in the remediation plan. And as Agent Wagner pointed out, in the application to essentially relocate the shed prior to the removal and remediation activities. But it does seem that the contractor may not be fully informed of the scope of work. And so I guess that at this point, we should, as you say, have Agent Wagner communicate those requirements, and it would be up to us to determine if we want to, what would be an appropriate timeline for completing this activity. Frankly, I have no idea what would be, what kind of work is required or how much time it will take to get the work done. And we're not really certain right now as to how much of the work has been done, although it seems like it's very little. Agent Wagner, could you weigh in on this and give us a sense of when you can, what you can see as a potential for getting this done in terms of when and what it will take.
But I'm not really sure what your question is.
Okay, what is it going to take to get this done, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, just doing it, the paperwork's in place, the permit is in place, the appeal period is passed. So, it should, all the, wetlands red tape is out of the way. So now it's up to Kurt and the contractor to just do it.
Okay. And can you communicate a sense of urgency to Mr. Bohm about getting this work done?
Yeah.
And maybe raise the stick of what it would be entailed for enforcement action. If we have to take it to the next step, what's going to come down on him?
Can I ask you one question based on a picture that I sent? Is the one that you saw with all the boulders, are those going to be removed?
That was my understanding, that any material that was put in there as fill will have to be removed.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I was clearly understanding, because again, that was put there to make space for that platform. All right, gentlemen, I am sorry that I have to take so much of your time, and I do appreciate what you're trying to do. So thank you again. And I will see you, I guess, for the January meeting. Is that the next one?
Our next meeting will be in January, but feel free to contact anytime.
Oh, I will. Thank you again.
Okay. So if I return to the regulations, it's not really clear exactly what would occur if we have to take legal action. But I think we can be assured that it would not be favorable for Mr. Bohm.
I just wanted to get done.
And you know, we don't, as I say, I think that would really constitute a delay of the game. But at the same time, if the work is ready to be done, and as Agent Wagner says, everything seems to be in place for it to be done, then I don't know what else we can do to get it completed. I'd be happy to entertain any suggestions from the commission. Okay. Well, I guess that again, the commission right now should simply continue and I don't know. I'm not sure that I understand what the sequence is now. Agent Wagner, you mentioned something that had expired. What had expired now?
The appeals period for a public to appeal an agent's decision to issue the permit.
Oh, okay, right, I got you, the 2 week. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he can now.
He can act on the
He
permit.
can act on the permit now, okay. So I guess that we'd like you to communicate with him about actually going ahead and moving on the permit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I mean, I feel like it should have been done earlier, but it's like all the steps are now like he's got a permit to relocate a shed. He's got permission to access the land.
right,
Like everything's out of the way for the project to get completed. So the next step would be legal action because that's the only thing left.
right.
And
But
that's
it's
where
only been,
what we've been working towards. And now that if nothing gets done, then legal action is the next
right,
practical thing because we have a trail of we've issued a permit, we've come up with a remediation plan,
right.
gotten
And
legal permission.
and especially now that the permit appeals has expired.
Yeah,
There's
so
really
everything's
no,
place to do it. So now it's on him to do it. And if he doesn't do it, then we can do
Yeah.
legal action, knowing that we've done every step previous to.
right, okay. So we've had, about 2 weeks since the appeal period expired, right?
No, it
No, this
expires
is- that's-
Saturday. So
Oh, just
it's
this
been,
Saturday, okay.
yeah, it's been 2 days.
Okay, so there's still a little window.
Yeah. It's just because the whole process took so long. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of like we should have got this point probably in the summer, but with the turnover with agents and everything, it just didn't happen, I guess.
Yeah, and again, the denial of the first permit request kind of threw a wrench into the progress and into the process. And he really couldn't do
Well, there was no
anything without moving the shed.
direction, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Would it be fair to say that it should be complete by the time we get together a month from now?
I would like to see at least substantial progress
Can we
on
have Agent Wagner ask Kurt Boehm when he's going to be done?
I can do that. I can ask him for a date. I was under the impression talking to him that he wanted to get it done as quickly as we want him to get it done. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's what he told me. So,
well, if he has the permission to move the shed and can then subsequently remove the fill and remediate the disturbance, then there's no reason for him not to go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be correct for you to ask him for, okay, when are you going to get this done? Give me a date and communicate that to us so that we can determine whether it's a reasonable, and not, well, I'll do it when I get around to it kind of response.
Mm-hmm.
We need a hard deadline. And again, communicate that failing that, we're going to have to take legal action. So if you can communicate that and get it back to the commission, I think that would resolve. Well, that's as much as we can do right now.
yeah.
But I do think we need to make a priority having it complete. And we're already late because we wanted this complete before we got done with the drought, so that if we do get a lot of rain and it starts washing through there, it doesn't wash those boulders down to block the creek.
Right.
We're
Again,
living on borrowed
I
time. at this
suspect that those boulders are at their angle of repose. And it would take a hellacious flood to move those objects. But still in all, yeah, it's getting wet and it's not going to be any easier to get the work done. So, you know, I agree with you, Commissioner Larson, that we would like to see this done by our next meeting. Next time we have to talk about it, I want to hear a report that says it's finished. We can have done with that cease and desist order. Okay, anything else on the issue? Are we clear where we need to go? Major Wagner, any questions?
No.
For the commission? Okay. Then I would like to move on to the agent report, which I suspect we have already heard mostly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything other than what we've already talked about.
Joe, have you seen the temporary road that's been put on 422 Lake Road?
No, I talked to I think it was Jim Blair. I went and visited the site with him before they started the work, but I haven't seen it since it started.
I would think that I was surprised at the material that he put in there. And with the heavy rains that we have had recently, I can't tell from walking down the road how much, he's run down the hill into the lake from that. But, being sedimentation of the lake being the concern that it is, I would think that road would have aggravated that as opposed to helping it.
Jed, do you recall the application number for that? You're talking about the stone wall on the other side of the lake from where we're looking. What was that?
Yeah, I do not have the application number, but I do recall, doing the site visit there, and there was no discussion of a temporary road or anything like that.
Yeah, we would call that a haul route, but nevertheless, the fact is, if it wasn't in the application, I think we do have an issue. I mean, I'm trying to find that. Okay, that's application number 20. And no. Yeah, at a quick glance, I don't see any mention of, putting in a haul route or, stone dust haul route for moving materials for that construction. They talk about using the excavator. They talk about, measures for erosion control and so forth. But again, nothing about that.
And it could be that he has silt fence down there that's stopping any of that material from getting in the water. I was just very surprised at the extensive nature of whatever you called it. To me, it was just a temporary road to haul the stone back, down that way.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the purpose of that stone dust is to prevent compaction and tearing up the ground while you're doing it. But I think perhaps we could ask Agent Wagner to check in on that, see what the skinny is in terms of again avoiding impact from that material. Are there controls in place to avoid erosion? What's the long-term plan for that haul route?
Yeah, I think when I talked to him, they were gonna remove it when they were done. I remember him talking about putting gravel down.
Okay.
And then he was putting a silt fence on the water side, and then he was put tarps down to do the work. And then when they were done at the end of the night, they would fold the tarps back up to cover the wall as it was under construction.
Right. Okay.
So it should be, there's like the tarps and the silt fence will both prevent any of that from getting into the water, or should.
Okay, so
but I can take a ride down there and take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong. I know he's got a great reputation for doing good work. It just surprised me with the type of material that was being hauled in there to create this road that I said, I was just surprised because we had no discussion of it.
Yeah, and as you say, especially since it wasn't mentioned in the application. Okay, well, any other business? Okay, hearing none. Our next regular meeting will be in 2021 on January 4th at 7 p.m. on the usual, well, on your usual device, I guess I could say, rather than the usual place. With that, I would be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second to that motion?
Looks like we lost Bill. It's up to you, Jim.
Okay, Jim's muted, but I can tell by his lips that he's saying yes. So I will now ask for a vote on that non-debatable motion. Commissioner Halsey, raise your hand if you're in favor of adjourning. Okay. Commissioner Larson, same sign. And I also vote to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned at 10:15 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you, Mindy, for hanging in there with us. And again, we'll be in touch with communications about the enforcement action and so forth between now and the next meeting. And we'll see you all on Saturday morning, beginning.
Nice job.
Okay. Good night, all.
Right.
Good
You may
night.
now click on leave meeting.